Good afternoon. Today is a special meeting of the Cable Communications Advisory Board. Today is Wednesday, June 14th. It is 5 p.m. Before we get started, we have a new person in charge here at NU-CAT. So, Steve, would you like to introduce yourself and maybe tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. All right. Well, my name's Steven Sherman. I started as the community cable coordinator in January. I started with NU-CAT in 2013 as a part-time technician. After a year, I applied for the full-time position as a production technician, and I've been doing that until last December. So prior to that, I was a graduate of the Film Studies program in Minnesota State University, Moorhead, with an emphasis in film production. Originally, I'm from Franklin, Minnesota, so that's not too far from here. And I've been living in New Ulm since I got the job here, and really enjoy being part of this community.
Well, great. Welcome aboard on behalf of all of us. So. We got a few things to get taken care of today. First up, our election of officers. We've not met since July of last year. So what we have is a slate of president, vice president, and secretary. So we'll see if there's anyone who wants to entertain a motion.
I would make a motion that the slate of officers remain the same.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. Right now, the slate is myself as president. We have Tom, I got to get Tom's last name correct, Grubner as our vice president, and Denise Fisher as our secretary. Any more discussion on that particular issue? No? So all those in favor of that slate say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item number 2 are the minutes from that meeting on July 21st, and I'm going to test you to see if you were all here. Remember what we talked about? No, actually, I'll entertain a motion to approve the Cable Communication Advisory Board meeting minutes on July 21st, 2016.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion to approve those minutes and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item number 3 is our report on NU-CAT administrative activities. Mr. Sherman, you want to take this?
Sure. So the report includes reports from the third quarter, the fourth quarter of 2016, and the first quarter of 2017. The reports include any of the events that we've had filmed, whether they be live events here in the chambers or collaborations with the library in the NU-CAT studio. It also lists all of the training and education time that we've been putting in, including time spent at the middle school and one-on-one classes in the NU-CAT offices. You can kind of see that the DVD sales, as the months go on, have kind of trickled down a little bit, and I think that's probably just due to a trend of less home media, less people wanting that type of media anymore. And we've been including more content on the YouTube channels, so that's included on here as well. So. Any other questions about the administrative report?
Any questions? Okay. I know, Steve, you and I met a couple of weeks ago and just talked about some of our role here as the advisory board and some things that I'm looking for, and one of them is to upgrade equipment in this room as a priority. Where is that moving along? Where are we at with that topic?
Well, definitely still thinking about that. I need to put in some bids. I was looking at what Mark had, the previous coordinator, had put together for the bid on this room. He did that I think it was something that was reviewed last year's meeting. So at this point, it would need to be rebidded. I don't know if that's
I know you wanted to wait until after tonight and get this cable franchise agreement.
So I've just been kind of researching what he was looking at getting, and kind of, I have a ballpark idea number, and so hopefully after this meeting we can get those bids in, and that's why still be meeting next month to work
Right. And
on those.
And then you had mentioned you were kind of staying on the same timeline. What Mark had talked about was redoing this particular room and that control room first, and then look at the office and everything else down in your control center and as a second phase, correct? Is that still kind of your plan?
Yeah, that would definitely be the plan. So
Because these are apparently still plasma TVs. Do you know what those are even?
Well, yes.
So the same TVs that were here 9 or 10 years ago when I started. in
yeah,
classes, so they're,
and replacing all of the cameras and all of the equipment that's going to be needed to be working.
yeah, it's going to be a lot of work.
It's going to be hopefully it won't be too much work with the integrators that we'll be working with. Hopefully in and out quickly. But
And you're full staff now too?
I am.
Yeah.
Yep. Or yeah, we just hired a full-time production technician that'll be starting at the end of the month.
Okay. So right now you're full staff.
Yep.
Perfect. Great. All right. We have a report. Did we accept this yet? Yeah, we did. I would entertain a motion to accept the NU-CAT administrative activities report.
I'll second that.
We have a motion to approve the administrative activities report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to the main reason that we're here is to review and consider recommendations of the new Ulm Telecom Comcast cable franchise agreement to the City Council. Roger, do you want to take this?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair and members, you've been provided with copies of what are likely to be the final drafts of the new cable franchise agreements between the City of New Ulm and both Comcast and New Ulm Telecom. I believe that representatives of both franchisees are present for this meeting. They may or may not have some comments to make. These have been some very long negotiations. The Comcast franchise came up first. We've probably been working on that for over 2 years. The telecom has not been out there quite that long. One of the things that the two companies have insisted upon, which was anticipated, was that in most respects, the terms of the franchise agreements are identical for both companies. We're not treating them differently. Here comes committee member Heine. Anyway, after negotiating with the representatives from both companies, we came up with the two agreements that have been submitted for your review and possible recommendation. Ultimately, of course, the decision on whether to accept these is up to the New Ulm City Council. As far as changes between this agreement, these agreements, and the earlier versions, there are a lot of changes. Not all of them, I don't think, are of substance. What I'd like to do is probably highlight what the terms are, just for your consideration, I don't know if you've read through them or not. Basically, each agreement is going to be a 10-year agreement. We assume they'll be signed contemporaneously, which at least will mean that both of them would be expiring about the same time. One of the things that we negotiated quite a bit about had to do with customer service. For a lot of the terms of these agreements, we have to work within the regulations of the Federal Communications Commission. They do have standards for customer service requirements. The companies have got to comply with those. And we don't know if those will be changed over the course of time or not, but that's something that is built into these. One of the questions that took a lot of negotiating was, I think in the city's initial proposals that we had asked for, included some locked-in language about maintaining some kind of local facility in the city of New Ulm. Obviously not probably quite as big a deal for New Ulm Telecom under the current ownership. Comcast was reluctant to absolutely commit to that. To be a shame if we lost their local employees, but that is the nature of the technology and the business. At some point that could close. They are obligated to maintain a drop box during the course of the franchise and make appropriate arrangements so that customers using either company are going to be able to continue to have access. As equipment is exchanged or bills need to be paid, at least there would be something local that's going to facilitate their ability to do that. The franchise fee is 5%, which is what we're allowed to charge.
That's not a change.
Right, and that's something, what it's based on is defined in here. There are some things that are not included. Basically, it would apply to the charges that they're incurring to their customers for the cable services that they're providing. The city is entitled to an accounting of this to verify that the amount being paid is correct. So that's built into this. Some of the other aspects that took some negotiation that I think were important to Mr. Sherman and his predecessor, Mark, have to do with the PEG access programming and also the access for cable service to city facilities and for purposes of local broadcasting. We spent a lot of time negotiating the amount of a grant that each company would pay. The most that they are willing to pay is not what we initially asked for, but there is an initial grant of $20,000 from each company that they would be paying into the system for a total of $40,000. What each company would do, which is typical, I think, under these contracts, is they would assess as part of the monthly billing a PEG fee. It's going to initially be at 33 cents. It would increase to 45 cents per month at the written request of the city, and that could happen after 5 years. So the first 3 years are 33 cents a month and then 45 cents. The other thing that the companies insisted upon is with the grants that they are paying, they're going to be reimbursing themselves out of these PEG fees. So that before there's any new money coming in, the $20,000 is going to get repaid. So the office would have an extra $40,000 if it wants to use it to upgrade its equipment. But at least for a period of time, that's going to be the only new money going in from that source. There was also a lot of negotiation about the locations for both providing free cable service. They're going to continue to City Hall, the New Ulm Library, and to Vogel Arena. That's the ability to receive the programming. The other part of that is the lines for broadcasting locally for public access. And they've agreed to continue the existing locations and to add new ones. This is something that ultimately the two companies, we asked them to negotiate between themselves as far as sharing the responsibility, and they were able to come back with an agreement on how to do this. Comcast has agreed that new sites will be installed at the New Ulm Civic Center, Vogel Arena, or Vogel Fieldhouse, and the N-Telecom has agreed that new ones will be going in at District 88, at the new high school, and also at Johnson Park. So we will have some additional sites to the extent that they want to use those for purpose of doing any additional broadcasting. Would allow them to broadcast from the baseball field. So anyway, those were probably the key parts of this, and we just would like the commission to make their recommendations. In each one of these negotiating sessions, involved were myself, the city manager, Mr. Gramitz, and also the director, whether it would be either Mr. Martinez or Mr. Sherman. So at this point, we think this is probably the best deal that we're going to get from each company. certainly not what we started out with, but this is where we're at this point.
A couple of questions that I would have, I think I asked this last year, maybe even when we first started on this, is it industry standard to do a 10-year contract with technology the way it changes so quickly? I'm just quite surprised that, on both sides, that we'd want a 10-year.
Well, I think that's kind of the norm. I think that's usually the ones that I was seeing. I think everybody involved kind of wants to know what financially their obligations are going to be, because it's a major undertaking. So
think-
I think that's.
Who knows what our
really
cell phones are going to look like in 10 years
No,
compared
that's
to
not
cable
fair.
television, but,
Comment, they actually used to be 15-year franchise
Really?
agreements.
wow,
Yeah,
really?
right.
But, there isn't a lot of direct,
Do you want to come into the podium?
This is being broadcast,
Another thing we need to upgrade to have good communication.
one
in
of the things
audience.
that you'll note in the franchise is there's not a lot of direct detail about the type of communication, the type of network. So,
Okay.
the technology will continue to change, and we expect that. I'm sure
Yeah.
Larry feels the same way, and that's why, to make it a little more lasting, the function needs to remain in place. How we do that may very well change in the next couple of years, 2 or
Yeah.
3 years, but the end result is there, so.
Can you talk a little bit about, every contract's got an out clause, and I kind of read through this one, but we have several different ways we could, if something just wasn't working right, we would have an out clause, and that would include what?
Well, if there are breaches of the agreement, we've got the right to terminate it. If the company, one of the things that could happen is if the company gets sold, there's an option where the city of New Ulm could actually acquire the assets that would be the subject of the sale. I'm not sure why or if the city would ever want to do that. But, the lines are located in our rights-of-way, which is why we have a franchise agreement, because they're using the public right-of-way to run their cable lines. So, one of the things, and I don't know statistically what's going on, I think, and maybe Steve, and definitely I would think the representatives would have more current information on this, but as was alluded to, this applies to cable TV. It does not apply to internet. And if 3 years from now or 5 years from now, everyone is watching what they're now watching on TV on their computers and they're not subscribers to cable, these agreements are going to become less and less relevant. Our income is going to be reduced because we're not going to be getting the franchise
Getting those
fee.
fees anymore.
And that's something that's outside of our control. That's what technology in the market will be driving.
That's probably quite likely. Did I read something as well, my last question, about additional channels being added as part of this?
That part of it was, I believe there was one additional channel. I think that in addition, after the first of the year, after 1/1/18,
definition.
we can ask for one
Yeah.
high-def
Yep.
channel.
There's also if there's too much content that you can request an additional channel. I believe that was in there as well, but
And I think
that's not
it's
really
something where, again, depending upon where the companies are at, the technology, might go from standard to high-def across the board, and I think those sorts of things happen, we would be brought into that as well.
And that's probably quite likely, maybe not on January 1st, but
No.
quite likely in 2018, wouldn't it?
yeah, hopefully once we have all our new HD equipment, then we definitely would want to be on an HD channel.
Sure.
Right.
Okay, those are my questions. Anybody else have questions?
I don't.
No?
No.
Okay. So we need to entertain a motion to recommend NU-Telecom and Comcast cable franchise agreement.
These are both independent agreements.
Do you want a motion on each one?
No, I think it's,
You want-
as is stated, but just so it's clear, it's in the plural. It's
Yeah,
the
there's two
agreement.
separate agreements,
Right.
correct.
Yep.
So moved.
So we have a motion to consider accepting both the Ulm Telecom and Comcast cable franchise agreements. Do we have a second on that?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion items? Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. Lastly, item 5A, receive the resolution number 2017-17 from the New Ulm Public Library Board regarding the extension of the building sharing agreement. Mr. Sherman.
So this was prepared, as you said, by the New Ulm Public Library Board, and they forwarded this to us, to our board, to approve and to potentially approve and move forward to City Council. The original agreement is also on here. I put that just so we can see what was originally decided. That it actually was a 3-year agreement and ended in 2011. And since then, we've just been continuing with those original arrangements, but it was decided that we should probably have everything official. So,
So we had any increases?
What's that?
We had any increases over this $3,000?
The only increases were the additional space that we've added on since the original agreement had been decided. So we have more storage space, and we are utilizing some of the space in the maintenance closet where we put our server rack now. But other than that, it hasn't increased. The only difference between this and the previous contract is that it's not set in for a certain number of time. It's just going to be continuing, and then there's going to be the option to cancel within a 60-day written notice.
Which actually kind of has me concerned. If that would ever happen, could you imagine packing up and getting out of here in 60 days, finding a new location, setting up shop? I don't think that could happen.
That would be a challenge for sure. Yeah.
I know we have our counselor here, but is this something we should really develop and have a new contract and a new, just to protect us as a
Interesting.
cable?
I don't know that I got the agenda. I wasn't even aware this was on there.
I think,
When
it wasn't
I was being
necessarily
authorized. That's not
planned.
unusual for the library board, though, to let me know after the fact that.
Well,
I think the goal is just to show it to us, and then they were going to move it forward to beyond that. But yeah.
But I think you've got a valid point. I'm sure that was selected arbitrarily. It's not an unusual notice period. If legitimately 90 days would be more appropriate.
I'd
I'd say that either 90 or maybe even
120.
120. Yeah.
I mean, imagine just trying to find a place. And then,
I know that they had a difficult time just finding that place. So, from what I've heard, so
could we do a question for our board here? Would we want to ask the library to, because it's their property, to come up with a new rental agreement for us? I mean, and get a new one, get a new 3-year type of contract.
Well, I guess I understand why this lease even exists, but I'm not sure who my client is here, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, well,
yeah. I mean, I do kind of like the idea of having the option, if we did
yeah,
have
right,
another.
it's kind of like which one?
Uh-huh.
I think it just protects both of us, really.
Yeah.
I would recommend that we not, it's asking for us to just receive this resolution. It's not really asking for anything. I'm asking, I think, if we could, I don't know if it's a motion or not, to request from the library board a new rental contract for 3 years, whatever.
Okay.
If they're willing to do that, if it's a year to year, that's fine too. But like with a 90 or 120 day out clause,
I'm not sure if it has expired or.
it
It did expire in 2011.
So there's
So-
Right,
I
so-
think both parties just kind of.
and we're probably
let it
fine.
slip.
But what happens if something?
Yeah, like right now, Chris and I, we work together really well,
Sure.
but down the road, it could be different people and different situations.
Exactly.
So
And the library wants to start something really cool downstairs, and yeah, we need your space.
mhm.
I've been on this particular board long enough that we have looked for other spaces at one point, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and we had a heck of a time back then. We had really difficult time finding anything that was going to work for us back then, so we stayed where we were, and then I think we asked for more of that space. But so is that something that we could do? Is ask, and I guess I better not make the motion. If we could have someone make a motion to request the library board to look at a contract, a rental contract for the new cat.
Well, Mr. Chair, as worded, the action item would just be to extend the existing lease. And if you want to
Well,
modify
I
the
don't wanna
terms, I think, that it would be to direct, if you're gonna ask Mr. Sherman or whoever to negotiate with Chris Wiley on some, whatever terms you think would be appropriate.
Well,
So we-
well, the motion says to extend the building sharing agreement. The resolution includes that 60-day term, but I don't see that 60-day termination term in the June 12th, 2008 document, and maybe I'm just not able to find it.
So that would be
quickly.
the-
I think the library's already proposing to add something.
That was a change from the original.
Right,
Yeah.
so I think the resolution is to, we can accept the resolution.
Oh, we could.
It is what it is, but that doesn't mean we're accepting the terms of the contract, and that we could say that
We're
we
requesting,
we would still have this is asking to authorize the city attorney to prepare a new building sharing agreement, which I presume we would review then again before it's
we would, yeah.
Sure.
final, so.
Well, and frankly, this is something where, as far as I'm concerned, any time if you and/or Chris want something put into writing, let me know. Just give me the input from you guys. I'll do it, and nothing will happen until the library commission and this commission has looked at it.
Sure.
But you just need to have something in black and white, so you know what they're going to be deciding.
So we can accept that, at least here now, that we receive this resolution, and then we'll just recommend that you talk to Chris and see if we can get a updated agreement.
Sure.
And bring that back to the next.
And you're
You
looking
might not get it to the
for
July meeting.
a
but
year to year, or what would
Is that what they're willing to give us?
Okay,
I'd push for a 3-year.
okay.
Maybe they only want to give us a year to year, but.
Sure.
Okay, so I'll accept a motion to receive this resolution.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to receive the resolution.
Did you make the motion?
No, I said I would accept a resolution.
Oh, so.
You can
Jack's
make the
mo-
motion.
You're making the motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the resolution, yes.
That's good enough.
Now second it.
So we have a motion and a second to accept this resolution regarding the extension of the building sharing agreement. Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. With that, that ends our new cat meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.